Welcome to the explainer. We're about to decode this secret pattern, a pattern that connects, well, pretty much everything, from our DNA all the way to our thoughts. It's like this universal language that's just woven into the fabric of reality.
All right, let's jump right in.
So, what does connect a flock of birds, a strand of DNA, and your own thoughts? I mean, it sounds like a riddle, right? You've got this beautiful, swirling flock of birds, then the tiny, tiny blueprint of life, and then, the very center of our consciousness. They seem worlds apart. But what if? What if they're all just speaking the same language? The answer, and it's a big one, reveals this incredible truth about how life organizes itself. We're talking from the smallest things you can imagine to the scale of the cosmos. Okay, so piece number one of this secret code is something called a fractal. Basically, it's nature's ultimate blueprint for making really complex stuff out of super simple repeating rules. And once you know what to look for, you see them everywhere. Seriously, the way lightning branches out, a rugged coastline, even a single snowflake. The crazy part is, no matter how far you zoom in, that same basic pattern just keeps repeating. It's literally the architecture of life. And the second part of our code? It's chaos. But hold on, it's not what you think. We're not talking about just random messiness. Chaos theory is all about systems where one tiny little change at the beginning can blow up into huge differences down the line. You've heard of the butterfly effect, right? That's it. So think of chaos as the engine of change. It's what keeps everything interesting and creative. It makes sure these fractal systems aren't just frozen statues. It makes them dynamic, adaptive, and, well, alive. All right, let's put these two ideas together, fractals and chaos, and see how they actually work out in the real world, the world we can see all around us. I mean, just think about a flock of birds or a school of fish. It's just mesmerizing, right? This single, fluid shape that seems to have a mind of its own. But here's the kicker. There's no leader. No one's in charge. This isn't random at all. It's this beautiful, complex order that just emerges because each individual is following a few incredibly simple rules. Things like stay kind of close to the guy next to you, try to go the same speed, and don't crash into anyone. That's literally it. So, in the world of chaos theory, scientists have a name for this, and it's a great one. A strange attractor. It actually makes a lot of sense when you break it down. Attractor because the whole flock is drawn to this stable, coherent shape. But it's strange because inside that shape, its exact movement is totally unpredictable. It never, ever does the exact same thing twice. It's this perfect dance between order and freedom. And this right here, this shows us something really amazing. The flock as a whole is super stable, which makes it tough for predators, right? There's no leader to take out to cause chaos. But at the same time, it's incredibly dynamic. It can react to a gust of wind or a threat in an instant. This whole idea, this mix of stability and constant change, is a huge theme. You're going to see it pop up over and over again. Okay, so that's the big picture. But what happens if we zoom in? I mean, way in. Does this same rule of order emerging from chaos still apply at the most fundamental levels of life itself? Just look at these two examples. On one hand, you've got a slime mold. It's a single cell, no brain, no nervous system. And yet, it can solve a maze by growing these fractal-like tendrils to find the fastest route. And on the other hand, you have our own DNA. It has to pack an unbelievable amount of information into every cell. And how does it do it? By folding itself into something called a fractal globule. It's incredible. One is solving a problem, the other is storing information, but they're both using the exact same playbook, fractal logic. Get ready for this number, 2 meters. Okay, that's about 6.5 feet. For most people, that's taller than they are. Now just hold that number in your head, because what it represents is, honestly, it's mind-boggling. That is the length of the DNA that is crammed into the nucleus of one of your cells. A space so small you can't even see it. How is that even possible? Well, it's that fractal globule thing we just talked about. It's just folding and folding and folding on itself in a self-similar pattern. So the big takeaway here is that fractals are basically nature's zip file. It's the most efficient, elegant storage system you could ever imagine. And get this, it's not just for our genes. As we're about to see, it's for our memories too. All right, so we've gone from the body's blueprint. Now let's go to the most complex thing we know of in the entire universe, the human brain. You have to wonder, right? Does this same pattern show up here too? Oh yeah, big time. The brain isn't just like a fractal, its physical structure is fractal.
The way our neurons branch out, all those complex folds in the cortex, it's that same self-similar pattern. But it's not just how it's built, it's how it works. The brain operates on the edge of chaos. Our brain waves aren't some boring, predictable rhythm. They're these complex, dynamic waves that are constantly shifting, forming these temporary, stable patterns, those attractor states again. And that's what gives us everything from deep focus to those flashes of creative genius. And this idea, it completely flips our whole concept of memory on its head. We tend to think of memory like a filing cabinet, right? You go to the right drawer, pull out the right file, but it's not like that at all. It's much more like walking through a dense fractal forest. When you try to recall something, you're not just grabbing one thing. You're starting down a path, and that path branches off and connects to another, and suddenly this whole network of related thoughts, feelings, and senses just lights up. So here's a model for how that might actually work. Think of your long-term memories as these stable fractal structures, like the big ancient trees in that forest. They're the anchor points. Now, to actually access them, your brain sends out these chaotic exploratory loops, like little vines quickly spreading through the forest, connecting this tree to that one, building a complete thought or a vivid memory on the fly. And there it is again, that perfect partnership. Fractal patterns for stable storage and chaotic energy for dynamic recall. Okay, so we've seen this pattern in giant flocks of birds, we've seen it in our DNA, we've seen it in how our brains work. So let's pull all these threads together now and go for the big one. What does all of this tell us about consciousness itself? I mean, when you just look at it all laid out, the pattern is impossible to ignore. It just keeps showing up at every single scale. Scientists call this cross-scale continuity. And it really does seem to be a fundamental rule of how things get organized, from molecules all the way up to culture. You ever wonder why some art or music just clicks with you? It might be because it's echoing the same fractal patterns that are already built into the architecture of your mind. And this leads to a really profound idea. What if complexity and intelligence, what if consciousness itself, isn't something that's designed from the top down by some master architect? What if it just emerges from the bottom up? It suggests that life builds itself, using the same simple, elegant toolkit, fractals and chaos, over and over and over again, at every level imaginable. And you know who was onto this idea a long time ago? Erwin Schrödinger, one of the founders of quantum mechanics. He didn't think consciousness was just some random accident of evolution. No, he thought it was fundamental to the universe. And he described its structure as aperiodic, which is basically an early way of saying fractal. He was hinting that the very shape of consciousness itself might be a fractal. So that leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending question. If this pattern, this dance of self-organizing, fractal, chaotic systems, is the signature of consciousness, and if we're starting to see that exact same signature everywhere we look, in galaxies and ecosystems, even in our cities, then it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Where else in the universe might consciousness be waking up? Thanks for joining me on this explainer.